Hello and welcome to today's demo session. My name is Hannah Scherer and I'm the Director of Customer Success here at BigMarker. What you're seeing now on my screen is my logged in homepage. So from this page, I can do a lot of stuff. I can see my upcoming webinars, both things that are happening now and also that are happening in the future. I can enter my webinars from this page as well as manage my meeting spaces as well. The differences between a meeting space and a webinar on BigMarker is a webinar is, your true regular webinar that you would expect from a webinar provider. Well, a meeting space is a designated meeting room that you can create that's always open and available for you to host meetings and quick sessions at any time. And the link actually doesn't change throughout the entire process of the webinar. You can also access your channels from this section, and we'll be getting to what a channel is in just a moment here, but just knowing that you can find it both on your home page and at any time on your left navigation bar here to the left-hand side of the screen. Now, as mentioned, we will be getting to the channel section next. And your BigMarker channel is your company or your organization's overarching account for your webinar hosting activities on BigMarker. Now, you'll notice that all of your webinars are funneled into this channel, or if you have multiple channels, wherever you host your webinars from, it will kind of funnel into that channel. But again, the channel page it acts as kind of an archived center for all of your content. So all of your recorded webinars, all of your upcoming sessions, they will all be listed out in grid view here that you can access at any point in time. You'll notice here on the right-hand side as well that you can have multiple channel hosts. Currently, I am the only admin of this channel, but I can manage my co-hosts and add more. The first two do come for free with your account, and any additional members of your team who you'd like to add as a co-host will then just be $19 a month additionally per host. So again, anyone with channel host access has admin access of the account. That means that they can create and schedule webinars, they can edit them, and they can also manage your channel settings. Now, again, webinars and webinar archived, a place for your webinars to be archived is the main focus of your channel, but there is a secondary focus as well. So you'll notice to the right of the webinars tab, you'll have a subscriber list, a discussion section, and even a calendar view as well. So you can actually utilize your channel much like a social media account for your webinar hosting simply by building up a subscriber list. So anyone who attends your webinars currently, they'll be auto-subscribed to your channel. You can manage that in your settings if you do not want that to be the case, but that's just the automated setting. And then you can actually communicate with one another on the discussion section, very similar to how like a social media like a Facebook wall or news feed would work. And then also in your calendar view, you can post external events in addition to your webinars. So again, there's that social media component to your channel, but you do not have to use it that way. Really, again, the primary focus is to be kind of a place for all of your content to be archived and can be co-managed by multiple people from your team. Now, again, the macro view of your BigMarker account is the channel. It's something that can be co-managed by all of your team members, and it's where all of your content is stored. But on the micro level is obviously the individual webinars or web sessions you create. So to schedule and set up a webinar on BigMarker, regardless of the kind of content that you're going to host, you'll want to click this green schedule button here at the top of the screen and fill out the details that pop up in this modal. So title, date and time, things like that. Once you click schedule again, you'll be brought to your webinar landing page. And I've done a little bit of tweaking here, but we're going to actually go in and edit this page to make it look and feel how we want it to. But just to note right off the bat, this is the page where people come to register for your event when it's live, or excuse me, before it goes live. And then when it goes live, this is also the page that people will enter the webinar when it's open for them to enter. Just a quick note that your your audience members can enter either 15 or 30 minutes before the webinar. You can set this yourself. The auto setting is 15 minutes before, and you as the host can enter 1 hour before the start of the webinar. So the entered points will be different for whether you're an admin or an attendee. But again, this is the registration form and the entry page as well. Now, if you do choose to record your webinar, your actual recorded session will also post here to this page. So the link doesn't change throughout the entire life cycle of the webinar. And again, if you remember back to your channel, all of your webinars are listed in grid view here. So again, this is your landing page. You can really customize it to your liking. This is the place where not only they're going to find out, about your webinar again, but also register. So you'll want to make this page really enticing. And to do that, you have your admin toolbar here at the top of the screen. And the first section that you'll really want to make sure that you go through, because it is all of your webinar details, it is the edit section. So again, actually changing the content of the webinar landing page, the settings of your webinar, this is where you'll do all of these actions on the edit page. And you'll notice this left-hand toolbar, the first section is webinar details. I think all of the features are pretty straightforward, so I'm not going to go through all of them, but I am going to call out a select few. And you'll see me doing this throughout the entire duration of the session, just because I don't like to bog you down with too many details, but I do like to kind of share the full suite of tools that you can access on BigMarker. So the first thing I want to call out is the schedule type, because this is something that I think is really important to understand the differences, and also it's going to dictate how you utilize the system as well. So the first is single session. Whenever you create a webinar on BigMarker, it's going to auto select to single session, but you do have other options as well. A single session is just a regular scheduled webinar that's going to have a scheduled start time, and it will end, and you'll have if you do choose to record it, the recording will be posted, etc. The next option is a recurring or multi-session webinar, and this is if you plan to host the same webinar at different time slots. So perhaps you're hosting a demo each week or something like that. If you choose a recurring webinar, it's just going to be the same webinar duplicated over and over again to offer different times. And on the landing page of the webinar, your audience will be able to select the time that works best for them. So you can add as many new times as you like, and it's just going to duplicate your content over and over again. The final option is an always open meeting room. If you remember back to what we first saw when we were on the page, is that meeting space function. If you do set up a webinar in this function and you want to open another always open room or meeting space, you can do that. And then you'll also be able to find them in the My Meeting Spaces section of your logged in home page. So again, everything else is pretty straightforward in this section. You can edit your webinar title. You can add an about section of your webinar, which I do highly recommend. It gives more details about what you're going to be covering in your session. Also, you can add agenda topics and really personalize the landing page to yourself. The next section that I do want to cover is the presenters section. So you'll notice that you will be the featured presenters. Whoever sets up the webinar will be listed as a featured presenter. You can choose to hide that or not in the settings here. But if you do want to add a new presenter, for example, if you have a guest presenter that you're inviting to your webinar, they are free to add. You can just add them here by clicking Add New Presenter, filling out the details, and then it will actually send an invitation to that person to be a host of the webinar, and then they will enter the webinar with those presenter credentials, so they can automatically share their microphone, their webcam, etc. And it will also give them the ability to add their own bio, their own image as well, if you, in case you wanted to let them edit their own presenter bio. The next section I want to cover is selling tickets, because it is something that makes BigMarker very unique in the webinar space. Selling tickets on BigMarker is really easy to do if you do want to monetize your content, simply by clicking paid tickets or even donation if you do want to collect a donation, but obviously still offer the webinar for free. But paid tickets, all you have to do is select the price to attend live, also the price to view the recording for those who didn't purchase a live ticket. And then also, if you do want to share that coupon code here to allow certain people to attend for free, it's just an auto-generated 5-digit code that you can share with whomever you like. Finally, privacy settings is another section that I like to cover. It's really kind of simple, but it is nice to know exactly what you are setting up when you are setting up your webinar. So the first thing to note is that you can either set up a private or a public webinar on BigMarker. If you set up a public webinar, it is searchable on BigMarker's marketplace. Very similar to YouTube. It doesn't mean that people are necessarily going to come across it, but they might come across it if it is public content. People do search for webinars on BigMarker and they do come across them. So if you are interested in keeping your webinar private only to a select group of people, you'll want to make it a private session. Now, the automatic privacy setting for any private webinar is anyone with the webinar link can attend. That means if you share the link with people, they will be able to sign up and attend. Now, if you want to change those privacy settings, perhaps you want to add a password, or you only want to allow members of your channel to be able to attend, or even, probably in my opinion, the most secure, only those who you've personally invited through BigMarker using the BigMarker Invitation Center, which we'll get to in a moment. Anyone with a special invite would be able to attend. So again, it depends on the privacy settings that you want to add to your session, but it is important to make those selections early on so that only those select few groups of people that you want to actually attend your webinar will be able to do so. Another privacy setting that I want to cover is your recording permissions. So who can view the recording if you do record your session when it posts. Now, when we get to the recording section in a little bit, you'll notice that you can either publish your webinar when it posts, or you can keep it unpublished. But if you do choose to publish your content, publish your recording to the landing page, who do you want to be able to view it? The auto setting is everyone. This means that if it's a public webinar, that anyone can come across it. If it's a private webinar, it means everyone with the event link can view it. But if you want to limit it to perhaps only those who attended the webinar, only your channel subscribers, or even just the channel admin, so yourself and whoever presenters or guests you had, you can definitely make those selections as well. Now that we've covered the edit section in a good bit of detail, I do want to move on to the design section now. The design section, obviously, as it kind of alludes to, is going to be all of your images and branding around your webinar. So the first thing that you'll want to choose is your landing page template. We currently have 4 templates or layouts that you can select for your webinar room. We are always growing them. So with your landing page, you can really customize it. We have a classic template, a countdown, which just highlights the a countdown clock here on the page, a minimalist template, which it just has a little bit more cleaner lines, smaller, and then also billboard, which has a really, really large image. Right now, I'm using the classic template, and when I go in and click customize, I can add my images. As you can see, I've added an image to the background here, but I can always change it just by clicking Edit Banner Image. Also, the theme color I can edit, so the button color. I can actually add a hex code, so I can actually use my own company colors rather than the stock colors that we provide, but it's up to you. And also I can view the registration form. I can view what it will look like when the webinar is live, and also the recording state as well. So I can see the landing page template in all stages of the webinar. And again, if I want to see my image with different templates, I can just go in and choose, maybe I want to try this minimalist template and see how it actually shrinks the image and all of that kind of stuff. So you'll be able to see all of the different templates that you want to use and really make the webinar landing page your own. So the next thing you'll want to do after you select your landing page template and add branding to that is if you do want to add your logo to the live webinar when you are hosting it, instead of having the BigMarker B in the top left-hand corner of the live webinar, you'll want to go to the logo section and click Change Logo, upload your own, and then also if you want to customize the theme color as well, you can do that very easily by just selecting your theme color. It's just going to provide a background kind of banner to your webinar. And again, in this section, you can also add a hex code if you want to add your exact company colors. Also, you can save this theme as default so that each webinar that you host in the future, it will always have the same default settings. Finally, we have the webinar preview card section, and this is important especially if you plan to share your webinar, for example, on social media. This is the preview image that will show up if you share it on like Facebook, Twitter, etc. Also, in your channel, if you remember all of the webinars listed in grid view, this is just that preview image that you'll see showing up in grid view on your channel. So I always like to upload a photo here. You can choose to upload one here, or you can even choose a stock photo image as well. So those are all of the kind of elements of the design section. The next section is the emails and invitation section. And this is a section where you can not only send email invitations and set up reminders, but you can actually customize this as well. So it is really important to familiarize yourself with, even if it is very straightforward. So again, clicking on this page, I can set up either new invitations or I can edit existing ones. I'm going to go in and edit this existing one that I've already set up. When I do click this, you'll want to note that what I can edit in this section is the content and the images. What you'll want to do is you can actually upload your email list, as I've actually already done. I've just done a test email here, but you can always copy and paste them or select your list that you want to add. And then going on to the actual content of this section, again, you can adjust the actual body of the text. You can also change the reply to email, which I actually find personally to be one of the most beneficial, because then you can actually reroute the emails to come actually back to the email address that you want to use. So again, just customizing all of this. You can choose your own teaser, description. It's all very straightforward, but it is nice to, again, kind of look at how that will actually view. On the right-hand side here, we have the view of the email. Again, moving on to design, this is going to be the portion where you would add images. You can actually add a banner image. You can, again, just like the landing page template of your webinar landing page, you can customize the layout, the template layout, so to speak, of your BigMarker email as well. So you can pick a nice template for that. And then also adding, if you want to add any headshots or background colors, button links, etc. Again, it will just look like this. And it's again, very straightforward stuff, but it is always nice to cover. And then the final step in the email process is sending or scheduling. So do you want to send your email immediately once you're happy with it? Do you want to schedule it for a later time? Obviously email stats show that early morning might be a really good time to send out promotional emails during the work week, things like that. So you'll want to schedule it to make sure that it's really looking and feeling exactly how you want it. But then also you can also send a test email as well. So if you do want to test how it will appear when you do receive it, you can send that as well. Also, in the emails and invitations section, you can also not only customize your reminders, which is almost exactly the same as customizing your invitation section, but you can also set up the frequency as well. So in the reminders and notifications section, you can always add more, you can review them, etc. So things like a webinar feedback survey after the webinar, all the way to multiple reminders leading up to the event. There will be there's 2 reminder emails. One is 1 day before, and one is 30 minutes before the webinar starts. That are automatically selected. Also a confirmation email when people do register. You can choose to get rid of these, add more. It's really up to you, but those are the auto settings currently. The final section of the webinar hosting process is your promote and manage page. And this is all of your marketing and analytical tools that you can use leading up to your webinar as well. So the first thing that you'll want to note is that you land on this dashboard. The dashboard contains a lot of useful information, so I just want to call out a few items again. So the webinar URL, you can copy this and just share it wherever you like. Again, this is just kind of a standard link that you could share anywhere, and it's just going to be the cleanest form of the link. Below that, you'll notice that you have all of your analytics, not only leading up to the webinar, but also after the webinar has been hosted. You can actually see all of your analytics, not only ones that are going to be about registration stats and about attendance, but also you'll see things like how engaged your audience was, what device they were on. So there's really useful analytics that you have access to that you'll see not only in your promote and manage section of your page, but also in reports that will be emailed to you following your webinar. Next, we have the integrations. So BigMarker integrates with a ton of tools across the web, mostly like CRM and marketing related tools, your HubSpots, your Salesforce, all of those kind of things. If you don't see your favorite tool here, that's okay. You can always utilize the Zapier integration as well, which allows you to integrate with nearly any tool on the web. They have a huge list of tools that you can integrate with, and it just acts as like a third-party software that you can integrate to tools with. Then finally, we do have some really cool embeddable widgets here. So if you want to embed your registration form on your website, you can just click Embed Registration, and a little widget will pop up that you can kind of customize. So, the image of your webinar, you can choose big or small. When you have it looking the way you want it to, you can copy the code and then embed it into your website. The same is true for your live webinars. So you can actually embed your webinar. This one doesn't actually have a preview, but it's just an iframe that you can copy in, and then when your webinar goes live, people can watch it from your site, which I think is a really cool thing that is definitely useful on BigMarker. Now, moving up to the top here, a few things that I want to call out specifically for those of you who are familiar with automated webinars. If you're not, an automated webinar it's really a tool that's often used by marketers and other pro or seasoned webinar hosts that allow people to essentially host webinars without actually hosting them. And what that means is you can actually preload a video generally into your webinar, and it will just automatically play, and people will kind of feel like it's a live experience, but you don't actually have to be in the webinar. However, on BigMarker, something that's really cool about our automated webinars is that you can actually be in the webinar, and then you can facilitate like a live Q&A session after the webinar, or excuse me, after the video has played. So to set up an automated webinar, if you are interested in doing that on BigMarker, you'll want to go to the preload files and videos section. And even if you aren't planning to host an automated webinar, I think it's still a really good idea to preload your content, just so that you have everything in queue ready to go when you're ready to host your webinar. So uploading presentations such as, PowerPoint, slideshow, PDF, anything like that. And then also videos. So BigMarker is compatible with YouTube videos or MP4 videos. But specifically for the automated webinar function, to do this, you'll want to add a video by selecting, MP4 or video or YouTube, excuse me. Once it's uploaded, all you have to do is go to the Autoplay section, and this is what makes it an automated webinar, so this is a key step. And you'll want to click the drop-down, select your video, and once the webinar goes live, so at the scheduled start time of the webinar, it will just automatically start playing, and again, you don't even have to be in the room, it will just automatically go. But again, it is still a live webinar, so if you do want to go in and facilitate that Q&A session, or give that handout, or do whatever you want to do, you can always do that as a host. You can also preload things like handouts and polls in the room. This is a great idea, especially if you're planning to share a lot of polls, so you don't have to type them on the fly. But handouts as well. So if you plan to share the slideshow that you shared during your webinar, perhaps you want to hand out homework, or even give out a deal or something like that, you can certainly do that as well. But like I said, everything that I'm going through today, I don't want to bog you down with too many details. So those are the only kind of features that I'm going to cover in the Promote and Manage section, but there's just so many more. Again, to kind of break down these 4 sections, the Edit section is your webinar details, anything surrounding your webinar landing page, or any kind of settings for your webinar. The Design section is obviously the branding and design aesthetic for your webinar landing page, and the in-webinar branding as well. Emails and invitations, again, very straightforward. But then also Promote and Manage section, this is going to be all of your marketing and management tools. So the final piece to the BigMarker puzzle is obviously going to be hosting the live webinars. So I have an open webinar room here that I'm going to enter, and I'm just going to call out right away that I am entering my webinar as a host, as an admin. So I can enter again 1 hour before the start of my webinar, And I'm going to see a bit of a different view than my audience will see. So I'm going to show you both of those views today. I'm just going to differentiate between the two of what your audience will see and what you will see as a host. So the first difference is that when I enter the webinar, I get to see this test audio and video screen. So if I'm going to be sharing any sort of external microphone, external webcam, I'll want to make those selections early on in this drop down here, but I can also test my mic and my webcam here very easily. And once I have my settings where I want them to be, I can continue to webinar, and this is the blank state of the webinar room. So one thing to kind of note here is that, again, my view is a bit different. What I'm seeing is all 4 parts of the webinar hosting experience, whereas my audience, they'll only be seeing 2. So what my audience will be seeing is this presentation screen. So any content that I share here, whether it be a video, a PowerPoint, my webcam, or even screen sharing, will be displayed here. And I will see this, but then also my audience will see this in real time. So again, if I'm going through my slides, which will, we can go through as well, we can click through those and they'll be ready to go. Also, the chat, people, poll, Q&A, and handout section, my audience will have access to that as well. And so these are, again, the only 2 things that my audience will have access to or be able to see during your webinar. What they won't be able to see, but what you have access to as a host, is your sharing tools at the top of the screen. So mic sharing, webcam sharing, screen sharing. So, sharing my actual browser with my mouse movement in real time. File sharing, which allows me to share slideshows, PowerPoints, images, etc. And then also video sharing, so again, YouTube or MP4. So if I've already preloaded my content in my files and videos sections, I can just click those and play them live on the fly, or I can upload my content as on the fly as well. So if I wanted to click Files, all I'd have to do is drag and drop here, browse my computer, find the file that I want to, or again, if they were pre-uploaded, I would have a little queue here of the content that I can share. The same is exactly the same for the video experience as well. Just to show you what it will look like, since I don't have any content uploaded currently, I'm just going to launch a blank white page here that you can see how it will display in the room. So, and I'm just going to use the drawing tool as well. Hello, I'll just write hi. So you can see, let's just pretend that's my slide. And if I had multiple slides, I'd be able to click through them in real time. The final piece of the hosting puzzle is the host control panel. And again, this is something that is unique to me as an admin. This helps me control my settings in the webinar room. So the first tab is the audience tab. This helps me balance my audience permissions with what I want to allow my audience to be able to do and or not do. The second tab is the record function. So I can click over here, select start recording when I'm ready to record, and then again, stop recording when I'm ready to stop recording. And then my advanced settings also let me do things like broadcast in HD, hide all tweets. So if I've connected my chat with Twitter by adding a hashtag, and certain tweets coming in that I don't want, I could just click hide tweets to erase all of them. But back to the audience tab, since this is certainly the most important, you'll notice that the default settings here are the first 4 toggles are turned to green at the start of the webinar, and the second 2 are turned to gray or off. And to note here, the first 4 really are your chat functions and what you want your audience to be able to do or not do. So the first is the show attendee list. If you don't want your attendees to be able to see who else is attending the webinar or how many people are attending, you'll want to turn that off. Public chat, if you don't want your audience to be able to communicate using the chat function, or the public chat function rather, you can turn that off. They would still be able to send you private messages in the people tab. There's like a one-on-one private chat function, but they wouldn't be able to communicate in the public chat for everyone to see. And then finally, the Q&A section, which is a little bit different than your chat section because it's specifically a place designated for asking questions. You can choose to disable it entirely if you only want people to communicate in the chat, or you can keep it on and you can allow people to submit their questions. But if you don't want other people, so other attendees, to see the questions being submitted, you can just turn off the view Q&A, and then only you as the host or the admin would be able to see the questions coming in. Again, all 4 of these are turned on at the start of the webinar, so you'll want to make those changes early on. And then the bottom 2, these are definitely more of a meeting tool than they are a webinar tool. I definitely recommend keeping these off for the duration of your webinar, but if you are hosting a small meeting and you want your attendees to be able to communicate using their microphone or their webcam, you can turn this on and then all attendees would be able to share their microphone or webcam at any time. Now, you can choose to keep these off, and instead, if you do want to allow certain individuals to be able to share their microphone or webcam without giving everyone access, you can certainly do this as well by scrolling and finding their name in the attendee list, similar to how my name is listed here in the admin section. And then they will have these icons here to the right of their name as well, except they will have some slash marks through them indicating that they are disabled. You can just enable them for that one single person, and then they would be able to share. Perhaps you want to use the hand raising section here to have your attendees raise their hand and then have them be called on. It's really up to you and how you want to facilitate your webinars. Then the final thing that I want to cover in this section is the presenters section, because as we've noted, we've seen the attendee view, we've also seen the admin view, so I, as an admin, see everything. But what you may not realize is that presenters, they have this kind of middle ground of sharing privileges on BigMarker. So they'll get everything that you see here minus the host control panel. So they can do things like share their microphone, their webcam, screen, file, and video, but they won't be able to, for example, stop the recording or change the audience permissions. So again, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've covered the host control panel all the way to the sharing opportunities that you have on BigMarker. But going and backtracking a little bit, we've also covered setting up and scheduling a webinar and also your channel functions. I am going to open everything up to questions now. So thank you again for joining and happy hosting.